For too long, empaths have shouldered the burdens of the world, serving as unsuspecting receptacles for the pain and negativity of others. They've endured in silence, absorbing emotional blows, often dismissed as overly sensitive, excessively emotional, or simply too much. But that chapter is drawing to a definitive close. Carl Jung, a visionary in the field of psychology, foresaw this very moment, a profound psychological shift poised to upend the existing social hierarchy. The era of the feeler is dawning, threatening to eclipse the narcissist. The sensitive souls are preparing to rise, poised to challenge the dominance of the selfish. If you identify as an empath, understand that your resurgence is not just a possibility, it's an inevitable destiny. Jung recognized this transformation as the most pivotal psychological evolution of our time, predicting it decades ago. He envisioned a moment when those who experience emotions intensely would harness their extraordinary gift, not by adopting coldness or shutting down, but by strategically posing a significant threat to anyone who dares to exploit them. Jung understood a critical point that eludes most. What transpires when the shock absorber transforms into the engine? What happens when the individual who has silently observed every lie, every manipulation, every hidden motive finally decides to wield that accumulated knowledge? They are no longer a victim. They are a psychological mastermind, having amassed invaluable data over years of careful observation. The world is about to witness the true capabilities of empaths. We currently inhabit what psychologists term the Age of Narcissism, an era where selfishness is lauded, manipulation is rebranded as strategy, and emotional exploitation is simply accepted as the norm. Empaths have been navigating this landscape as if they were refugees in enemy territory, constantly depleted, perpetually overlooked, and consistently told that their sensitivity is a flaw. But a seismic shift is underway. Empaths were not merely enduring this age, they were studying it. Each time they were deceived, they meticulously catalogued the patterns of deceit. Every instance of manipulation served as a lesson, engraving the techniques used into their memories. Every instance of being exploited provided a crucial insight into the predatory mindset. While narcissists celebrated their fleeting victories, empaths were constructing an intricate psychological database of human manipulation. They've essentially completed the world's most rigorous psychology program, and they're about to graduate summa cum laude. Jung recognized a fundamental principle of human development, which he called the law of opposites. This law states that when anything reaches its extreme, it inevitably transforms into its antithesis, darkness into light, weakness into strength, silence into power. Jung observed this pattern throughout history, influencing both individuals and entire cultures. The narcissistic age has reached its zenith, now devouring itself from within. Society is teetering under the weight of its own selfishness. The very traits that narcissists once exploited in empaths are poised to become the most valuable assets in human society. Consider the essence of an empath. Someone who instantly assesses the atmosphere of a room, who detects falsehoods before they are fully spoken, who perceives subtle emotional shifts that others completely miss, who comprehends human motivation at depths beyond the reach of most, who senses the unspoken tensions that everyone else chooses to ignore, who detects micro-expressions that betray true intentions. This is not weakness, this is advanced psychological intelligence. It only appeared as weakness because empaths were using it defensively, attempting to maintain harmony, trying to assist everyone, and striving to absorb all the pain to spare others from experiencing it. They transformed their superpower into a service industry, becoming emotional custodians who cleaned up everyone else's psychological messes. They became human shields, protecting others from the repercussions of their actions. They became translators, bridging the gap between toxic individuals and those they hurt. All the while, they were undervaluing the rarest and most valuable skill set in human psychology. But a profound transformation is occurring within empaths globally. Jung predicted this moment with unsettling accuracy. He studied what happens when an individual is pushed beyond their breaking point, not the point of collapse, but the point of metamorphosis. He coined the term Enantiodromia to describe this phenomenon, a concept that is surprisingly simple. When pressure intensifies to an extreme, the psyche does not shatter. It reverses, becoming the opposite of what it once was. The gentle become fierce, the giving becomes selective, the open become guarded. The empath who has spent years being nice is on the verge of becoming authentic. The individual who absorbed everyone's emotions is about to erect boundaries like impenetrable steel walls. The person who remained silent to preserve peace is about to speak truths that shatter illusions. The people pleaser who contorted themselves for approval is about to stand so firmly in their own truth that they become immovable. This is not a breakdown. This is what Jung termed psychological emergence, the birth of the complete self. This is where it gets truly intriguing. The shadow side that empaths have suppressed their entire lives. The anger, the boundaries, the refusal to tolerate manipulation, the ability to sever ties without guilt, the capacity to decline without explanation, the willingness to prioritize their own well-being over the comfort of others, the readiness to allow people to face consequences, and the strength to watch someone struggle without intervening. That is not the enemy. That is the missing half of their power. Most empaths were taught to fear their shadow, believing that anger makes them bad, that boundaries make them selfish, and that protecting themselves makes them no better than narcissists. They were led to believe that prioritizing their own needs is akin to narcissistic self-absorption. So they buried those qualities deep within themselves, becoming incomplete individuals. All light, no darkness. All giving, no taking. All sensitivity, no strength. All absorption, no reflection. But you cannot have a coin with only one side. You cannot have a battery with only a positive charge. And you cannot have a complete human being with only the softer qualities. Jung devoted his entire career to helping people understand the importance of integration, wholeness, the union of opposites. He considered it the most crucial work a human can undertake. The empath's resurgence is not about transforming into a narcissist. It's about becoming complete, integrating the missing half. The shadow is not malevolent, it is protection, strength. It is the part of you that knows when to fight instead of flee, when to speak instead of remain silent, when to sever ties instead of heal, when to prioritize yourself instead of sacrificing for others. And here's what makes this absolutely devastating to narcissists and manipulators. An empath with an integrated shadow is unstoppable. They possess all the perceptive abilities they always had. They still see through lies, read people instantly, and comprehend emotional dynamics better than anyone. They still sense the energy in a room and pick up on what's not being said. But now, they are not trying to fix it, heal the narcissist, or sacrifice themselves to maintain peace. They're not assuming responsibility for other people's emotions. They are strategically using their abilities to protect themselves, build the life they desire, and remove anyone who cannot match their energy. Consider the practical implications. A narcissist enters a room expecting to charm everyone. The empath sees through them in seconds, recognizing the love bombing, noticing how they're sizing up the room for narcissistic supply and watching them shift personalities to suit their audience. But instead of attempting to warn people or rectify the situation, the empath simply removes themselves. No drama, no explanation, just strategic distance. The manipulator resorts to their usual tactics: guilt trips, gaslighting, playing the victim. The empath recognizes the pattern immediately and shuts it down with a single sentence, or even better, with silence and distance. The energy vampire attempts to drain them with endless complaints and crises. The empath severs contact without guilt or hesitation. The toxic family member tries the same old manipulation. The empath enforces boundaries that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. The friend who only calls when they need something is sent to voicemail permanently. The romantic partner who plays games is replaced before they even realize they've been playing alone. This is the comeback, not revenge, not becoming what hurt them, but becoming too psychologically advanced to be harmed by those tactics again. Narcissists and manipulators have thrived because empaths were playing by rules that guaranteed their defeat. Be nice, give second chances, see the good in everyone, sacrifice yourself for others, turn the other cheek, go the extra mile, be the bigger person. These are not universal truths. These are control mechanisms. Empaths are awakening to this reality. They are realizing that being nice to people who don't deserve it is not kindness, it's self-betrayal. That giving second chances to people who haven't earned them is not mercy, it's enabling. That seeing the good in everyone while they're actively hurting you is not wisdom, it's delusion. That sacrificing yourself for others who wouldn't do the same is not noble, it's a pattern that must be broken. But the comeback is not just personal, it's structural. Society itself is shifting in a way that favors precisely what empaths offer. For decades, we rewarded dominance, aggression, the loudest voice in the room, the person willing to step on others, the one who showed no emotion, and the individual who treated people like resources. That worked in a simple world, in manufacturing economies, in hierarchical structures, and in systems built on compliance and control. But we no longer live in a simple world. We live in a connected, complex, emotionally intelligent world. The economy thrives on relationships, trust, collaboration, innovation that requires psychological safety, and customer experience that depends on genuine connection. The skills that matter now are precisely the skills empaths have been developing their entire lives. Emotional intelligence, the ability to read people, understanding group dynamics, sensing what's not being said, building genuine connections, creating environments where people feel safe, knowing what someone needs before they ask, reading the subtext in every interaction, and understanding motivation at deep levels. These are no longer soft skills. They're the most valuable skills in business, leadership, relationships, and society. The world is finally catching up to what empaths have always known. Emotions are not distractions from logic. They're data, information, intelligence that most people can't access. Companies are beginning to realize that the aggressive leader who gets short-term results burns out teams and destroys culture, that the narcissistic CEO who looks good on paper creates toxic environments that stifle innovation, that the manager who rules by fear loses their best people. They want leaders who can read the room, understand what people need, build loyalty instead of fear, and cultivate cultures where people actually want to contribute. That's an empath with an integrated shadow, not weak, not a pushover, but emotionally intelligent and strategically powerful. Relationships are also shifting. People are tired of superficial connections, game playing, and emotional manipulation. They're tired of partners who can't communicate, friends who only show up when it's convenient, and family dynamics built on guilt and obligation. They crave authenticity, depth, someone who truly sees them, understands them without lengthy explanations, and can hold space for complexity. someone who doesn't run from difficult emotions. That's what empaths do naturally. But now, they're doing it with boundaries, with standards, and with the willingness to walk away from anything less than genuine. Even culture is evolving. We're questioning the systems that rewarded narcissism, calling out manipulation, valuing authenticity, creating spaces for emotional honesty, and rejecting fake positivity and toxic productivity. The pendulum swung so far towards selfishness that it's snapping back with significant force. When it settles, empaths will be standing exactly where the world needs them. Jung saw this coming. He understood that history moves in cycles, that what's suppressed eventually rises, that what's undervalued eventually becomes precious, and that consciousness evolves through individuals before it shifts in the collective. Empaths have been underground for so long that people forgot they were there, forgot what they're capable of, and forgot that sensitivity combined with strength is the most formidable combination in human psychology. The fully realized comeback empath is something the world hasn't witnessed before, at least not on a large scale. Imagine someone with the perception to read you completely, who knows when you're lying, who senses your intentions before you act, who understands your patterns better than you understand them yourself, and who can predict your next move based on patterns you don't even know you're repeating. But instead of using that ability to help you, fix you, or absorb your pain, they use it to determine if you're worth their energy. If you're not, you're gone. No second chances, no explanations, no 3-hour conversations trying to make you understand, just strategic removal. They don't flaunt their power or need to prove anything. They don't post about their boundaries on social media or make grand pronouncements about cutting people off. Their presence is different now, grounded, unshakable. There's a quiet intensity that makes people nervous if they have something to hide, and comfortable if they're genuine. They ask direct questions and don't dance around uncomfortable truths. They don't laugh at jokes that aren't funny to keep the mood light or perform emotions they don't feel. They don't pretend to be interested in conversations that bore them. This makes narcissists and manipulators deeply uneasy. Their tactics no longer work. The empath doesn't take the bait, doesn't get defensive when accused, doesn't try to prove themselves when questioned, doesn't need validation when criticized, and doesn't chase when given the silent treatment. The manipulator's greatest weapons are useless against someone who's psychologically complete. You can't guilt someone who's integrated their shadow. You can't manipulate someone who sees your patterns clearly. You can't drain someone who's learned to protect their energy. You can't control someone who's willing to walk away. The comeback empath commands respect without demanding it. They don't need to fight for their worth because they know it. They don't need to convince anyone because they're not selling anything. They're not trying to be liked by everyone because they understand that being genuine means some people won't like you, and they're completely fine with that. Better than fine. They prefer it. They'd rather be disliked for who they are than loved for who they're pretending to be. This is what Jung meant by individuation, becoming so fully yourself that other people's opinions become background noise. Here's what this looks like in real life. Toxic family members who used to drain them for hours get one-sentence boundaries. No more 3-hour phone calls processing someone else's drama. No more hosting holidays for people who don't respect them. And no more explaining their choices to people who won't understand anyway. Friends who only called when they needed something get distance without drama. No confrontation, no explanation. Just a quiet fade that protects the empath's peace. Romantic partners who played games get replaced by people who match their emotional maturity. No more dating potential, fixing broken people, staying because of history, or giving chance after chance to people who show you exactly who they are. Workplaces that exploited their empathy get left for environments that value their skills. No more working twice as hard for half the recognition, being the emotional support for the entire office, or sacrificing boundaries for corporate culture. And through it all, no guilt, no second guessing, no wondering if they're being too harsh, and no questioning if they should give one more chance. Just clear decisions based on clear values. This is the power of integration. When you're whole, you don't need external validation for your choices. The empath's comeback isn't loud. It's not about proving anything to the people who hurt them. It's not revenge or vindication. It's something much more powerful: indifference. The narcissist who used to occupy their thoughts gets forgotten. The manipulator who used to trigger them becomes irrelevant. The systems that exploited them lose their power because the empath has moved on to a completely different level of psychological development. They're playing a different game now, one the narcissist doesn't even know exists. This is your psychological destiny if you choose to accept it. Not a fairy tale, not wishful thinking, but the natural result of integrating everything you've experienced. Every time you were used, you learned how users operate. Every time you were lied to, you developed lie detection abilities that would impress a professional interrogator. Every time you absorbed someone's pain, you built psychological strength that most people will never develop. Every time you stayed silent, you gathered data that's now a complete reference library of human manipulation. You didn't waste those years. You were in training, and the training is almost complete. Jung believed that every psychological pattern has a purpose, that suffering builds capacity, that sensitivity is intelligence, and that the qualities you thought were weaknesses were actually advanced features you hadn't learned to use correctly. Your empathy isn't a flaw in your design, it's an upgrade that most people don't have. The ability to feel what others feel, to read what others miss, and to understand what others ignore. That's not a bug, that's a feature. You've been running advanced software on outdated programming, trying to be nice in a world that rewards authenticity, trying to help everyone in a system designed for self-protection, and trying to absorb pain in an age that creates it constantly. But you're updating the programming now, adding the missing code, integrating the shadow, building boundaries, and learning to use your abilities strategically instead of defensively. When that process completes, you become something the world desperately needs. Someone who can see clearly and act powerfully, who can read people accurately and choose wisely, who can feel deeply and protect fiercely, and who can love genuinely and walk away cleanly. The age that tried to break you actually built you. The narcissists who used you actually trained you. The pain you absorbed actually strengthened you. The silence you kept actually taught you. You've been gathering intelligence in enemy territory for years, learning their tactics, understanding their weaknesses, seeing through their masks, and memorizing their patterns. Now you're ready to use everything you've learned, not to destroy them, but to build a life they can't touch, a psychological fortress they can't penetrate, and a level of wholeness they can't comprehend. This is the empath's comeback, not becoming what hurt you, but becoming too complete to be hurt by it again, not seeking revenge on narcissists, but becoming irrelevant to their games, and not trying to change the system, but operating at a level where the system can't reach you. You're not entering their world anymore. You're building your own with your standards, your boundaries, your values, and your energy. Only people who match that frequency get access. The world is watching, even if it doesn't realize it yet. Empaths everywhere are having this same awakening, integrating their shadows, setting boundaries, using their abilities strategically, removing toxic people without guilt, and building lives based on authenticity instead of people-pleasing. As more empaths complete this transformation, the entire social structure shifts. The tactics that worked for narcissists stop working. The systems that exploited empathy start failing. The culture that rewarded manipulation starts crumbling. Jung predicted this shift because he understood psychological law. What's suppressed must eventually surface. What's undervalued must eventually rise. And what's exploited must eventually revolt. Not with violence, not with chaos, but with transformation. The empaths aren't coming for revenge, they're coming into their power, and that's infinitely more dangerous to systems built on exploitation. Your comeback isn't something you need to force, it's already happening. Every boundary you set, every toxic person you remove, every time you choose yourself over someone else's comfort, every moment you speak truth instead of staying silent, every instance you trust your perception instead of doubting it, and every decision to walk away instead of fix, you're already transforming. The only question is whether you'll do it consciously or unconsciously, whether you'll embrace the process or fight it, and whether you'll integrate your shadow or continue suppressing it. If you're ready for your comeback, you already know it. You feel it in your body. The exhaustion with being nice to people who don't deserve it. The anger at years of being undervalued. The clarity about who needs to go. The certainty about what you will and won't accept anymore. The readiness to prioritize yourself, and the willingness to be misunderstood. That's not bitterness. That's not you becoming cold. That's integration, wholeness, the missing half of your power finally emerging. The empath's biggest comeback isn't beating the narcissists at their own game. It's leaving the game entirely, building something better, creating spaces where manipulation doesn't work, developing relationships based on genuine connection, and constructing a life where your sensitivity is strength and your boundaries are unbreakable, where you use your gifts consciously and protect your energy fiercely, and where you're complete. If you're ready for your comeback, like this video and subscribe, share it with another empath who needs to hear this message. Comment below with where you are in your integration process, because your transformation matters not just for you, but for everyone watching. Every empath who completes this journey makes it easier for the next one. Every person who integrates their shadow shifts the collective consciousness. Every individual who becomes psychologically whole contributes to humanity's evolution. In The Alchemists, thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.